succeed. You know, people, oh, well, socialism is the answer now. Then we look at God, look at China, socialist Stalin and Lenin and all this stuff. I mean, you know, this is not what we want. Wasn't Nazi Germany considered socialist? I mean, no, this is not what we want. We don't want to force people to pay taxes. I mean, that's coercion. That's a bad religion. Could you imagine if the Protestants were doing that and saying, look, you need to pay this tax, you know, something could happen to your children or your house, or we could take your stuff, or we could hack your bank account, or, you know, put you in jail, you know, confine you, kidnap you, whatever, you know, and ruin your life. I mean, nobody would tolerate the Protestants or the Catholics or the Muslims or the Jews doing such a thing. So why do we think it's okay to tolerate the government, the state, basically, what has turned into a fascist state, from doing that? No, taxes should be fully voluntary. I don't know if you should mandate at any level. I mean, you know, let everybody keep what they have. I don't care. You know, maybe if we go right in their Rockefellers' pockets, because, look, the wealth exists. Some people will say the wealth disappeared. I think it was Peter Schiff I heard on the Alex Jones show that said something. It doesn't just disappear. Maybe it was Harry Dent, who, both men I respect immensely. But, you know, I would argue that wealth does not just disappear, that it does in fact get stolen, so it's been displaced. But the wealth exists first and foremost primarily in the labor force, a willing workforce, as Adam Smith explained in his book, The Wealth of Nations. So every nation, every community, every society, every civilization's single greatest asset always has been, always will be, just the workers, the willing workforce. Do you understand? Because nothing gets done without that primary asset. Okay, that's it. That is, you know, that is numero uno. Okay, but it seems like we forget that. We take advantage of labor and treat them like the lowest, you know, the least important commodity out there, but when they're the most. So, you know, once you establish that fact, you move on from there upward and understand that all the infrastructure that's got built, all the technology we have on the earth, everything, all the buildings, all of the factories, the stuff being made in the factories, what's what makes a nation wealthy. It's like taking an inventory. So you understand why the wealth exists, and it need have nothing to do with money. That's all just a scam. That's a scheme. It's evil. It's from the pit of hell. It's satanic. This is it. Jesus said these things. This is nothing new. I'm not just some smart, wise man. King Solomon wrote about this. Money is the answer for everything. And yes, he was being sardonic. He wasn't condoning that reality. He was just stating the fact. And it's the same thing today. That we're all money lovers. We're all sick, evil, twisted, and we've got to admit that and confess that if we're ever going to get over this thing and understand the way out. Okay? But we've got to, you know, really confess it, because your sins can't be taken away from you unless you admit them and confess them. And that is the central sin. That is the worst thing that we got going out there, is our love of money, our love of Satan. Okay? That's it. Our love of this world. And the security that it can offer us, the financial security, and the freedom that it can offer us, okay? This brings us joy and happiness. Let's just be honest. And now we can, you know, start to extricate ourselves from this mess. And it's going to be with God's help. But remember, it is like a false competing God, and it's very powerful. Gods typically are, when they're thought of in that, you know, we're all, I say little gods with a small g. We're children of God. We're made in His image and likeness, so it stands to reason and logic that it's okay to call us children of God, little gods. It doesn't have anything to do with comparing myself to the Almighty Creator. That's the potter, I'm the pottery. You know, this is the way it works. And my children are a mystery and they're a miracle, because I don't know anything about creating a human being. I did what came intuitively, instinctively. I fell in love with their mother, and we had relations, and we were married, and we had children, and this is what happened, and this is the way it works. That's what's supposed to happen. So, you know, humans aren't doing any fantastic feat by having children. Rearing them, you could say, well, they were a good parent, they were a bad parent, they were in between. But, you know, nevertheless, the point is that I don't know how to make a human being. So, you know, we're little gods, but, you know, the money is a big fat god, and it's got a lot of prescribers and faithful and minions. And remember, this system is like a religion, this world system. Okay, this earth system now is like a bad religion, and it's forcing people to do things. It's very tyrannical. And we, especially people in America, because, we kind of set the trend for the rest of the world. And I hate to say it, but California sets the trend for the rest of the world. And we're so divided here, it's not funny. It's something I wanted to get into today, but I'm not going to touch on. But this is what, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to: division, class division. It really is. It's economic classism. And more than half the people in California qualify as poor. And the reason is because the best metric, the best gauge, the best measure of prosperity has traditionally been for, hundreds of years probably, is home ownership. Is because you're free at that point. Is that, you're supposed to pay a nominal sum for your taxes, like, a late book at the library or something. So, that's what, that ideally is it. So you're free. You don't owe the banks anymore. You don't own the previous owner, that might have financed it anymore. You're free. You're scot-free. But if you're going to rent perpetuity, that's hopelessness. That's like saying, no, you're delegated, you're relegated to live in a motel. That's just the way it is. This is, a trend. You didn't get on the bandwagon soon enough. You should have seen it coming. But, we knew these big changes were coming, this division between the haves and have-nots, the prosperous and the not prosperous, okay, the renters and the landlords. That's how we've been divided. And it's awful. It's a horrible mess. And like I said, once these things are established, it's like pulling teeth to go the other direction, because now it's not in the interest to solve the problems. It's not in the interest to end the poverty industrial complex, to end the prison industrial complex, to end the dubious warfare industrial complex, to end the debt industrial complex. I mean, it's just a mess. It's a mess, and we've got to be honest, and we've got to just help each other in whatever way God puts on your heart. Speak to others. Speak to friends, family, strangers, associates, co-workers, anybody you can, anybody that will listen. Try to educate people. There was a woman just before I started making my video today, I was talking to for quite a while, and toward the end of the conversation, she was kind of getting more into my philosophy of economics and stuff, and I pointed out the fact that I'm an egalitarian. And she didn't know, but she was about my age group, and I don't understand how anybody could reach that age and not have heard that word. It's so important of a word to understand where I'm coming from in my economic view for others. Yes, libertarian, maybe, I don't know, but now that's got some negative association. But there's been a word that has stayed pretty clean and has been able to avoid any kind of negative, overtone or association, and that is that word egalitarian. And it simply means I believe in equality. Does that mean I don't believe in individuality? Absolutely not. Does that mean I don't believe other people do things way better than I do? Absolutely not. Okay, I know how to do a lot of different things very well. And, I don't know how to do some things at all or very marginally. And there's some things I just won't do. I can't do. For one reason or another, I can't do it. I couldn't be a highway patrolman because I could not handle the psychological impact of coming upon a horrible car accident. So, I mean, that's just, I put my own borders in place, boundaries, we all have to do that, but we are all equal nonetheless. Whatever it is you offer humanity is sufficient. It's not up to anybody to judge. It's certainly not up to me to judge. I don't want to judge. I don't want anybody born beholden to me, and I don't want to likewise be born beholden to anybody. I want my children to be. I don't want your children to be. I want us to be born free. Free from what? We've got to be